All right. Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Josie Wilson, and I have Andrew Nierenhausen here joining me so that we can present to you our year-end processes, reports, important dates, and rollover webinar. We've been doing this for a couple of years now, and I have found that we've had really good feedback each time we've done it, just to kind of remind folks about some of the deadlines we have in the collections and resource sharing department and technology services departments, as well as what you can expect from us at year end that hopefully will help you with your audit processes once those get started in the new year. And just to, I have some exciting, a new report we're going to share. So we've got lots to talk about today. I see that we have some new library managers here today and some seasoned library managers here today, which is great. And this is going to be recorded and posted on our YouTube channel so that if there are other folks in your organization who you think would benefit from watching the recording, you have that available. And so that other folks who weren't able to join us today can watch it. We try to keep this one to less than 45 minutes. Andrew and I might even be able to do less than a half an hour because we want to make that recording accessible that folks can get through it in a pretty reasonable amount of time. So in terms of our etiquette today, we are in webinar mode for Zoom. So all of you as participants are muted and off camera. I encourage you to use the chat to ask us questions, whether it be clarifying questions or if there's things that you're wondering about that we haven't covered, feel free to use the chat for that. And I will be trying to pause, and Andrew and I have built in a couple of pauses to so that we can look at the chat. We may not answer the question until the end, but that's okay. I'll be able to figure out kind of most likely based on your question what it pertained to. So with that, let's get started. And I'll welcome Stephanie Thorough, our manager of technology services here too. She wasn't sure if she would be able to be here today. So Andrew will be kind of doing the technology services piece, but Stephanie is here to answer any questions. So I apologize, Stephanie, for not introducing you at the beginning. So welcome everyone. So what we're going to be talking about today. So our objectives is by the end of this webinar, we want you to understand the year-end timelines for YRL and what timelines we're working with so that that helps you incorporate the information that you'll be getting from us into your timelines for your year-end processes. You'll understand that you'll need to complete your orders for 2024 before the year-end cutoff. You'll be able to identify which reports we will send you in December, and you will be prepared to run your annual report in January. So I'm going to throw it over to Andrew for the technology services piece of today's webinar.
Okay, so yeah, some information on behalf of technology services here. So technology services would like to remind you that Windows 10 will reach end of support in October of 2025, so just under a year from now. And to ensure compliance and security, it's important that you plan for replacing those computers in the next year. So that's computers that are running Windows 10 that cannot be upgraded to Windows 11. So whether it's for staff or public use, if those computers can't update to Windows 11, then they can't remain connected on the network, Yellowhead's network, beyond that deadline. So if you're ready to order replacements, if you're looking for new computers to replace those, Yellowhead is here to help. So feel free to reach out to us at helpdesk@yrl.ab.ca, and we can help get you quotes for computers, things like that. Please note that orders placed now through December might not arrive until 2025. If you require the items to be invoiced in 2024, let us know and we can assist with getting that set up for you before end of year. And then additionally, if there have been any staff departures in the last year, anyone that you haven't let Yellowhead know about, please reach out to us as soon as possible. Keeping the staff information updated helps us to mitigate security and financial risks, YRL also covers the costs for licensing services associated with staff accounts, things like Microsoft 365. So if you have any staffing updates from the last couple months or anything you haven't let us know about, reach out at helpdesk@yrl.ab.ca and we can get that sorted. And I think that's it for technology services.
Great, thanks, Andrew. So now we go into collections and resource sharing. So each year I like to give a little bit of a state of the current environment and just to kind of let you know, where we're at, especially with acquisitions, because that's really what this webinar really covers is what's happening in acquisitions, because that's the part that deals with the money that we're talking about for year end. So what we've been seeing this past year and what we are anticipating into 2025 is that collection policies and procedures are more important than ever. We know that this has always been a foundational core of library services. Collections policy is something that is required, a required policy that you all should have. But really the need for these policies and really robust, good procedures has been a challenge in some cases this year in some libraries. So just to give you a heads up, if you're looking at updating these things, now would be a good time. We have seen that our ordering fulfillment for regular orders and hot lists have returned to normal. If you were around during the pandemic years, we were seeing some delays, even when our pandemic was kind of moved into endemic status or whatnot, not as critical status. We still saw a lot of production line delays on items getting published and then getting out to here. But that has pretty much returned to normal. So our fulfillment on regular orders on average for United Library Services is around 28 days. And then we get our hot list as soon as we can, as soon as it's released, sometimes even the week before it's released. So we're seeing that has returned to normal. So we're happy about that. Now, what is the impact of all of this? What's the so what for you? Well, I kind of talked a little bit about the collection policies and procedures. One of the things we're seeing, and I'm going to talk about more later, is process only. So what are you accepting as donations? This should be, a part of your collections policy and procedures. Are those items circulating? Are they just sitting on the shelf waiting to be weeded? What sources are you using to select items? Are you looking at community demographics? Have you considered a diversity audit? Do you have a collections plan? And that's the procedure part of how you're selecting, what you're selecting, how often you're doing that, and your deselection plan. How much are you weeding? Are you doing inventories regular? Those are all the kind of the so what for all of you in your libraries. Book challenges. We've seen an increase in book challenges this year. One thing that we have provided some consulting on is what if the challenge doesn't come directly from your community? What if it's a challenge on your book from a different community or from someone who doesn't even live in the same country as your community? And so, these are important considerations and conversations to have with your board and help them to understand that having clear updated policies in place really allows you as the library managers and library staff to help ensure that the operations of the library are smooth and effective for your community. So if this is something that you've been thinking about, or you go, oh geez, I know we should maybe look at that collections policy, and maybe there are some things that need to be updated or some procedures and policy pieces that don't quite match, now is a good time to think about that and put that on your work plan for 2025. And if you need help and support, we're here to help you. We've helped and supported quite a few libraries this year and would be happy to help you next year. So think about that for 2025. So now into the more practical part of today's webinar. So what is year end in collections and resource sharing? It is essentially wrapping up our orders and receiving, so our acquisitions for the year. We do a lot of setting up for 2025, including setting up your allotments, setting up standing orders, and then rolling over your accounts. We do a deep dive into all of your funds and the status of all of your items that are currently on order. And we do a lot of back and forth cleanup with vendors and long back ordered items. We've mostly cleared those out last year from the pandemic, but we still have a few that are floating around. And then we do a lot of checking, double checking, triple checking, quadruple checking to ensure that our rollover in fiscal years in Polaris is accurate so that you don't lose any funds. I can't tell you all of the checking that happens not only by me, but by our accounting department, our senior accountant, Tatiana and Daria, and the work that we do to ensure that everything is 100% accurate and all of your funds and all of your on order items are rolling over accurately. So in acquisitions, we are closing out the 2024 fiscal year. We halt ordering to reconcile accounts, and we encourage you to follow a bit of a similar timeline for the most accurate information, because we do have a stoppage in activity in order to run reports that will tell us accurately what happened in 2024. And if you're looking for the same thing, kind of that accuracy in reporting, it's not a bad idea to have, a stoppage in your acquisitions activities to be able to run some more things if you want things that are over and above what we provide you. We reconcile your additional allotment contributions. So for those of you who send in us money from your local budgets, we reconcile that and make sure that we have captured all of that accurately for the year, and that anything that might be left over will roll over accurately next year. We accept your digital content contributions. Some of you at the end of the year will send in, if you have local money that's extra, you'll send that in for Overdrive or Cloud Library purchases. So we ensure that that is all captured accurately and those content credits are purchased. And then we do some reconciliation with our HQ collections too at the end of the year, because we do buy some things for the professional collection here, and we have some funds that we have to take a look at there. The other thing that we do is standing order setup. So currently right now, standing orders, we have juvenile, teen, series, and paperbacks, and we have adult paperback standing orders. Now, the adult paperback standing orders, I am expecting that sheet for 2025 to come out from United Library Services maybe next week, and you'll see that come through the email. And you can choose to make changes. So some of you may be getting the 10 bestseller paperbacks a month. And so that means that you just automatically get 10 popular title paperbacks every month. Those are picked by United Library Services, and you get a nice colorful flyer to promote at your library too. Some of you have patrons who love romance and Western. So you say, okay, send me 2 new Western novels and 3 new romance novels every month, so that you're not having to go in and pick those. You just know that those will come for those patrons who read those things voraciously. Teen series and paperbacks, juvenile and teen series and paperbacks, those are so that you don't have to keep track of every single Geronimo Stilton that is published in a year to make sure you have it on your shelf. You say, yes, I want Geronimo Stilton. When they are published, ULS will send us those and we send them to you. And the juvenile teen series and paperback extends a wide variety of formats and like just thousands of titles. It's a big list. That one we don't usually get until January because ULS doesn't have all the publisher information. But the reason that I talk about it here today is that if you don't know what your current setup is, now is a great time to ask. And if you need help evaluating what your current setup is, or you're not sure whether it's still working for you or not, now is a great time to figure that out. Because once you get to January, you're busy doing annual report. So now is a good time, if you have the time, send an email to Ask YRL or to orders@yrl.av.ca, and we'll help you to figure out what your standing orders are if you have any, and if you want to set some up for the new year. We can always start, and I can send you the juvenile list from this past year so that you can get a sense of what is on there. There's always a lot of, doesn't change that much year to year. So you can always use that as a starting basis if you're interested. So this is the big This is the big slide in this presentation. This is the slide that you want to screenshot. This is the slide that you want to write down notes from. This is the slide of this presentation. And so these are our dates and deadlines for 2024, which I don't know why this doesn't say that. Why? It says 2023. I obviously missed one date update in this. So this is our timeline for this year, for 2024. So Friday, December 13th, that's our deadline to order for this fiscal year. And that's really weird that this date is off in all of this slide. I apologize for that, everyone. This should be 2024 for this whole slide, except for the last part, that's 2025. So December 13th, that is our deadline for ordering for this calendar year. Friday, December 13th is when we receive our final shipping of new books from our vendors. So we will not receive anything else from our vendors after December 13th for this fiscal year. And then December 16th to 23rd is when you will start to receive your last sets of new books for 2024, including invoices and packing slips. And we will be doing our rollover within that time, and you will get your year-end reports emailed to you. And I'll talk more about those year-end reports in a moment. Then by January 16th, you'll see your new allotment will display in your funds on the CCD tool. Now, you may create and continue to submit orders in CCD or ULS orders or CVS Midwest tape orders, library bound orders after December 13th, but we will not consider them as part of the 2024 fiscal year. We will simply hold them, and then we will submit them in early 2025 when we all get back from holidays, so from holiday break. So feel free, if it works for you, to start doing some purchasing for 2025, between Christmas and New Year's. If it's a quiet time for you and you want to add some graphic novels or do some special ordering, you can do that. And you can submit them to us. We just won't be submitting them to the vendor until the new year. Okay. I think that's all for this slide. So let's talk about our year-end reports. So we send you out some year-end reports each year during that timeline of the 16th to the 23rd. I think that you should get all your year-end reports by the 18th, because I think that's going to be my last day of the year this year. So you'll probably get them by then. You may not receive them from me directly. You may receive them from Andrew. You may receive them from Penelope, from Jackson, from Alyssa, from Sophia, from Janet. So there may be multiple people or different people than you're used to hearing from that you may receive them. And of course, with all of the work that we've been doing on phishing and email security and things like that, and they will all have attachments in them. If you're concerned and you don't recognize the name, you can always just send me a note and say, hey, is this okay? Should I be receiving this? But all of us should have our email signature, and you should know from here what you should expect to see. So what you will receive in these year-end reports is you'll receive a detailed on-order report as to what you have not received in 2024. So these are items you've ordered, but you haven't received them yet. It may include some back-ordered items, so it doesn't mean that you won't get these items. You most likely will get them in maybe early 2025, or if some of them are hot list and they haven't been published yet, then you'll get them when they're published. You'll also receive a canceled items report. So this will tell you that everything that you've placed on order, it could also have been in 2023, that we've had to cancel. Now, this report does not include a why as to why it's not canceled. It just simply says the title, I think the ISBN, and then the status of canceled. If you are wondering the why behind why it's been canceled, you can always email us and we can try to find that out. Most likely, it's been a publisher's cancellation, or you have requested to cancel it. So those are the two most likely scenarios under which we cancel, is if you have requested it or if the publisher has yet let the vendor know that it should be canceled. The third report that you'll get from us is the fund expenditure report. Now, this report is the one that is the most important one that we send during this time. This is the one that it is really important that we have a time period of no activity in which to run this report and then send it to you. That is because we get the most accurate data on this report before we do our rollover in Polaris and after we stop all the activity and acquisitions. It gives us everything that you actually should have received in your library from January until December 13th. Or what you might be receiving that later that week, but it's already in Polaris. So everything we've received, I guess, would be the better way to put it, in the building for you, and then you'll get it before the end of the year. This report is one that often auditors will ask you for. We have many libraries who for many years would email me in January and February and say, can you get us this report? And I would say yes. However, it might not be 100% accurate. And if you know me, you know that I don't like sending out inaccurate information to you and inaccurate statistics. So we run this now for all of the libraries so that you have it, and also so that we have it. So that if for some reason you've lost it, deleted the email in January and February, if you email it to me, I can with confidence say, yes, here you go. Please give this to your auditors, and it is accurate. Now, that is kind of boilerplate what we normally send to you. We're doing something new for 2024, and we are sending you a report with your circulation numbers of your new items that you received this past year and your circulation numbers for any process only that you sent in this past year. Now we know that, if you got a new item in October, it probably hasn't circulated that much, but we're thinking that as an aggregate, you can look at collections and look at how much you've, you might have 40 items under graphic novels and see that you've had 120 circulations maybe this past year. So you can see how that looks towards maybe the 100 items of adult nonfiction that maybe only have had 20 circulations. And then maybe your process only, maybe you sent in some donations to us from a patron and made in January, and perhaps those all have a status of in and have not circulated at all. So it will give you a little bit of data to look at to see, how did you do this year for adding things to your collection? What circulated? What's sitting on the shelf with a status of in? Are there items still standing at a status of in processing that maybe didn't get checked in accidentally? So it's going to give you some, maybe I'm hoping, some interesting things to look at to help you plan for 2025. So that's going to be brand new for this year. Now, I shouldn't maybe over promise and under deliver, but I am hoping that we will not only send you 2024, but I would like us to go back to 2023 and send you everything that you purchased and sent in for process only, and give you those circulation numbers as well for all of 2023 and all of 2024, so that you have 2 years of data for those items. I'm not promising that as part of this suite of reports, but if we can't get that to you by the end of this year, we'll definitely be sending you that information in January. Once again, to help you plan for 2025 and plan your spending, because we want you to know that we're here to support you to spend your collection dollars as efficiently and effectively as possible. So, what are your funds? I always include this every year so that you kind of know what to expect. There's 3 sets of funds that we run reports on for the reports that I just mentioned. So we've got allotment, which is that money that comes to you from YRL based on the levy that your municipalities pay in order to be a member of Yellowhead Regional Library. Each of you gets 75 cents per capita back to you from that levy rate in terms of allotment each year. You saw in that timeline sheet that I said that your new allotment amounts will be in your accounts by January 16th. And you'll get a letter by the end of January stating how much you get. And if you're wondering how much you normally get, if you're new in the library, just send me a note. I can tell you how much you got for 2024 and how much we are estimating you're going to get for 2025. Additional allotment, I mentioned what this is already earlier. These are funds that you send into us from your local budgets to spend through Yellowhead on items for your collection. And then Bill Direct, if you don't send us money from your local budget collections budget, but you still want to borrow or buy and then pay us for those items, we do it through a fund called the Bill Direct Fund, and that always has a 7 at the end of it, and we invoice you for those purchases. So you might see some of these reports will come in and have this kind of nomenclature of naming conventions. So the report that just has your library code, that's your allotment code, or that's your allotment fund. The one that says -A, that's your additional allotment fund. And if you see anything with the 7 on the end, that's your Bill Direct Fund. If you have multiple funds that you use, you receive reports for each fund. Okay, so a few frequently asked questions that I like to share every year. Do you lose your allotment if anything is left unspent? No, all account balances and on order items or encumbered items rolls over. And I mentioned earlier that a lot of the work that I do for this, ensuring that that rollover happens accurately. What happens to your items on order? These get rolled over as encumbrances in the new fiscal year, so those stay attached to the fund under which they were ordered. What if you want to make an overdrive contribution? You need to send us the funds by December 6th. And if you want to pick your own titles for overdrive, you'll need to do that by December 13th. And if you want to send us some extra funds, like if you have some funds that you haven't spent out and you need to get them spent kind of on your books, but maybe you don't want to actually spend that money until 2025, you can submit that check to us and we will essentially hold it in trust in a way until you spend it, and it will roll over. We have lots of libraries who do this, but we need you to send us that money, or at the very least a note that you are going to be sending in money by Friday, December 6th, because Tatiana and Daria will need to roll over our books and will need to account for all of that additional allotment before they do that. If you have questions about this, please email me. And if you are planning to send in some additional allotment funds before the end of the year, please let me know as soon as you can. I know with the mail right now disruption, this might be a challenge to meet these deadlines. So please let me know and we'll figure out how we can either, if you're mailing in a check, how we can get that to us in a safe way before or around that deadline. A couple other frequently asked questions year to date. Some of you may be running statistical or reports in Simply Reports or looking at year to date figures. We always switch year to date in January, which means that right now the current previous year to date is 2023. And then once we get to January 2024, the previous year to date will be 2024. Okay, so just keep that in mind. That switches on January 1st. When will the new allotment appear? By January 16th, 2023. I must have been blind when I was updating this. So apologies, everyone. And how is your allotment calculated? You'll receive a letter from us in January that talks about that, because you may be getting allotment not only from your main municipality, but there may be surrounding county municipalities or other urban municipalities who send you or assign you some of their allotment funds. Many of you who are surrounded by summer villages will know that you receive allotment funds assigned to you from summer villages too. So if you get allotments from other municipalities, that will be reflected in the letter, letting you know how much that is. Okay, and I will now throw it back to Andrew. I know we're just about at 30 minutes, but we won't go too much longer. I know that was a lot of information, but now this is so that you will feel confident in getting that annual report complete when you get to the new year. So take it away, Andrew.
Yeah, I'm actually going to share my screen here if that's all right.
Yeah, I'm going to stop.
Okay.
There we go. And this is a
Okay.
good time if anyone has questions. This was our planned pause So if anyone has questions, feel free to put those
Oh,
in the chat.
so just want to confirm that you can see my screen there.
Yes.
Yes, perfect. Okay, so yeah, annual report. It is just about that time of year again. So we're going to walk through a little bit of information to get you thinking about this process. Um, the annual report is an opportunity to share with the Public Library Service Branch, or PLSB, some of the statistics or stories from your library in the last year. They ask for this information every year, and some years it changes a little bit, but the gist is always kind of the same. And they're just trying to get a sense of how people are using libraries in Alberta. So the annual report is also tied to your operating grant. So PLSB requires that you complete the annual report by the deadline, which this year is February 28th, to receive your operating grant in a timely manner. So that gives us lots of time to work with here, not until the end of February. And you won't need to worry about this until the new year. We still need to finish compiling some of the stats at Yellowhead. You won't have the final data from Polaris until after midnight on December 31st anyway, so we'll have to wait for that. There's also going to be a webinar in early January. We do one of these every year where we walk through the report, help you fill it out, try to answer any questions that come up at that time. I don't know if we have a specific date set for that webinar yet this year, but I think it's usually the second week of January, maybe early third week of January. But that will still give us lots of time to get this done before the February deadline and to help answer your questions. Okay. So all of the instructions for running the annual report in Polaris are on the intranet under the Reports and Statistics tab. So I'm going to go over there and we'll take a quick look at the intranet here. I just need to move some menus around on my screen. Okay, so on the YRL intranet, under Reports and Statistics, we have a menu option here for Annual Report, and I'll bring that up. So just to note that this page has not been updated yet for 2024. Once we return to work in the new year, we'll update all of the links for statistics and resources to make sure that everything is totally up to date for you when you are answering these reports. However, feel free to take a look anytime. Especially the instructions for filling out the annual report, because those instructions don't really change too much year over year. There's also a link here to visit the PLSB website, and we'll take a quick look at that. And this is also where you access the LibPass portal. And so anyone who hasn't done an annual report before, LibPass is just the name of the tool that PLSB uses to collect all of this information, kind of their survey tool. If you don't know your LibPass login, you'll need to contact PLSB for that information. They handle all of that login information and setup, and it's not something that we can help you with from Yellowhead. They do have contact information on the page here. So if you are a new library manager and you don't have your login information, or if you've just forgotten your login information, you can come here and you can request that information from PLSB. Okay, and then just really quick back to the intranet here. So you see that we have the PLSB information here. All of the links for the annual report statistics provided by Yellowhead will be listed here as well. And then we list our previous year annual report webinars here. So you can get a sense as well by watching previous year webinars, what kind of information is in the report. Okay, and then we also have a report in Polaris that helps to answer a lot of the questions that are asked by PLSB, and that's the Polaris annual report. There are still some questions that you will need to answer on your own that are outside of that report. So one example of that is public computer usage. So if you haven't had a system like Deep Freeze or I think Cybrarian does this as well, if you haven't had one of these installed on your computer throughout the year, kind of tracking your public computer usage statistics. So one thing you can do for this is to um, monitor your public computer usage for a week, and then extrapolate that out for the rest of the year. Um, PLSB is fine with that kind of estimation for some of these harder to track statistics. So that's just one example, but most of that information is going to be on the Polaris annual report. And that can be found in Polaris in the reports and notices menu. And of course, the instructions for that are on the intranet annual report page as well. So that should get you thinking a bit about the annual report. Have a look at the intranet page and the PLSB website to get a sense of things, but we will be back in January with a webinar to answer your questions and help you get this filled out before that deadline in February. And then I will pass this back to you, Josie.
Great, thanks, Andrew. Can you just go to our last slide? Do you mind?
Sure, let me just share my screen again.
Okay, thanks. So that pretty much wraps us for today. That is, some information for you about just to summarize what our year-end deadlines are going to be. What you need to know to kind of get started thinking about your annual report, what to expect from us in terms of year-end reports that will help you. Like I said, that funds, the received items one will really help with your auditor, because we know a lot of auditors will ask for that. Our auditors actually ask for those reports too. They give us a list of 4 or 5 libraries every year that they want that report, that items received for the year. So if you are new in your library and you haven't done an audit before, keep a hold of these reports that we send you, because you may need them and you may be asked for them in January, and then you don't have to be stressed about, oh my gosh, how do I find this information? And yeah, I think that pretty much takes us through the day today. Apologies once again for those years being incorrect, but we will that we are in 2024, and that's what year we're talking about. I see a question here from Angie. So when do you expect the usage stats to be available? So Angie, are you talking about annual report or the circulation ones that I mentioned? I'll just give Angie a second here. The last one mentioned.
So probably the circulation information, and that'll be early January, probably the first full week of January. We'll have all of the previous year-to-date circulation statistics done.
Yeah. And then all of your e-resource statistics and everything like that, those will all be updated that first week of January, or that first full week of January, not the part week, but the one first full, the 6th to the 13th, maybe 11th is that first week. So you can start looking for those then. And as Andrew mentioned, we will have an annual report webinar in the new year, but we are all available here to help with annual report questions as those start coming up for you. And if there are other reports that you need for your auditors too in January that we don't send you, because all libraries and all auditors do things slightly differently. So if there's other things that we can try to pull together some data to help you out to send you, just let us know what you're looking for. And we'll do our best to help so that you can get that information quickly to the people who need it. So that wraps us for today. Thank you again so much for coming. Thanks, Stephanie, for being here for support, and Andrew for doing the annual report part. And if you need anything, you can always reach out to us at Ask YRL. You can reach out to us individually, orders at yrl.ab.ca. There's many ways that you can get a hold of us, and always by phone too. And we look forward to your questions and supporting you with your annual reports and for your purchasing in 2025. So thanks again, everyone, and have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, everyone.